can see from our last lecture, microorganisms aren't the enemy that many suppose that they are. They are an integral part of life on planet Earth. They are an integral part of life in the human body. What we have to look at is why they are there if they are out of control. Because when we work with the human body, with its innate ability to heal itself, then we will begin to get results. What I'd like to do in this presentation, I'd like to take you one step further and show you really the true role of microorganisms in disease. Germs don't cause disease. They are the result of unhealthful conditions. Now, certainly if the conditions are so toxic because these microorganisms are so out of control, it can cause a person to get very sick. So number one has to first look at why are they there, which is what Florence Nightingale did, and what can we do to the environment to make it so that they are not out of control. Many people today are living in clean houses. Many people today are washing their bodies. But many people today aren't looking at the true cleanliness that should happen inside the body, specifically our gastrointestinal tract. And you can see too from my illustration in our previous lecture that this lining of the gastrointestinal tract is vital for the proper running of the human body, but not only that, for the proper breakdown or final breakdown of nutrients, and also the protection so that harmful substances aren't getting out of the gut and into the blood. At the moment on the news, and it has been for 6 months, is the Ebola crisis. But next time you see a photograph of a situation like at Sierra Leone where there are outbreaks, I want you to look at the background in the picture and you will find it's filthy. There's a lot of rubbish there. Now, I'm not saying that I know why it's there or what's happening there, but I think surely this is square one, is we clean up the area and show people how they can live in an environment that's not conducive to disease. I'm sure the Ebola breakout is more than just that, but I would suggest that it's the first step. One has to think, what would Florence Nightingale do in that environment? Exactly what she did in the hospital in Scutari. She would start to clean it up. Nothing can be lost by doing that, and possibly much gained. But I'd like to take you one step further now and show you the role that they really do play in disease. As you can see, they are responsible for the proper maintenance in the human body, but also their link with disease. What is the true link with disease? There is an element of scientists and doctors over the world today claiming that fungus plays a part in the cause of disease in human bodies. And when you have a look at how most people I meet, I don't think I've met anyone other than my son James who has had no antibiotics in their lifetime, or some of my other children haven't either. What are you putting in your body when you put an antibiotic in your body? You're actually putting a mold waste in your body. Now, to date, medicine has documented 1.5 million different molds, yeasts and funguses, and 1,000 of those are known and acknowledged to cause disease in human beings. One of the problems with medicine today is it's difficult for that to be acknowledged because of some of the most popular drugs are actually putting it in, which we looked at with antibiotics. As I said, the human body can cope with probably 2 courses in a lifetime. But when a lady comes to me and says her little 3-year-old is sick, and I start to investigate as to why this child is sick, and this lady said to me, her baby had 22 courses of antibiotics in the first year of life. Wow. What is the definition of insanity? To do what you've always done and expect different results. If something is not working, then we need to step back and have a look at the big picture. And that's why it's essential to acknowledge the vital role that these play in the life in the human body and life on planet Earth. So why would a fungus or a yeast be in the human body? It may be in the human body because the person has taken antibiotics. How many people say to me they get thrush after they have an antibiotic? That's because a mold has just gone into the human body. How can mold get into the human body other than if someone takes an antibiotic? It can get into the human body through ingestion. Again, antibiotics are ingested. It can get into the human body if it is on food. That's why if it ever is on any food, you must not touch it because it's so toxic. The other is it can get through the skin. So if there's a mouldy orange in your fruit bowl, please do not touch it. Get a pair of tongs and pick it up, or put your hand in a brown paper packet and pick it up with the brown paper packet and screw it over, then put it into the bin. So it can get in through your skin, it can get in through your mouth, it can be inhaled. That's why if there's any mould in your house, my suggestion is never put bleach on it, because bleach and mould together make an incredibly toxic mix. My daughter in America, she told me there was a story in the newspaper of a death of a woman who was cleaning her mouldy bathroom with bleach, and they came in and they found her dead. Every window was shut and the door was shut. Most people, when they clean, because many people do clean bleach with mould, the windows are open or they're not there for a long time. So how can we clean? White vinegar. White vinegar is one of the best. If you have an area that's mouldy, my suggestion is make sure you've got a mask on, make sure your skin's covered, and have a spray bottle with straight white vinegar in and just spray it, and then leave the room. You can come back 15 minutes later because it will be dead, and then you can wipe it up. If you spray and wipe immediately, the dust given off can go in through your skin and you can inhale it. But also important to ring the plumber or ring the builder and find out why it's mouldy, because they're just opportunist organisms. You will find them whenever there's filth, you'll find them whenever the sun and the air aren't getting into the area. Nurses used to read Florence Nightingale's book, Notes on Nursing. That's the title, Notes on Nursing, what it is and what it is not. And when you read her book, you think we should still be reading that book, because her cleanliness rules, some would say, were almost fanatical. She would never have agreed to carpet in a hospital. Carpet is often a breeding ground for germs. When I was nursing many, many years ago, the domestics were constantly mopping. You can mop wood, you can mop tiles, you can mop lino, but you cannot mop carpet. So I say if you like carpet in a room, it should be very short pile and it should be often vacuumed. You may have seen the SBS series a few years ago called Is Your House Killing You? Dr. Peter Dingle, a PhD from Perth, he majors in that series, and he has probably about 7 shows on those 2 DVDs of different homes where people were very sick, and in most of the cases it was a mould factor, and he'd get the team in, they'd find out why there was mould. In one house, every child's toy, every book in the bedroom, it had mould spores on it, and they found out there was a leaking tap underneath, something like that. So that's why the detective hat always has to be put on. That's why this resident Y should ever be here, because there should be no mould in your house. If you would like to even pursue this a little bit more, you can go to, I think it's Leviticus 13 in the Bible, where it says in there, if a house is mouldy, the house has to be pulled down. If the clothes are mouldy, the clothes have to be burnt. In the old King James Version, it's called leprosy. It says leprosy in the house, pull the house down. Leprosy in the clothes. In the new versions, it's called mildew. And then the same Hebrew word uses it for the skin. It's leprosy on the skin. But if they were accurately interpreting it, it would say mildew on the skin. In medicine, a mould is called myco, so mould waste is called a mycotoxin. And if you go to the medical dictionary, and look up the word myco, you'll find about 4 pages of the amount of diseases that have a prefix of myco. In other words, they have a mould factor in them and can be caused by that. One lady said, "Are you saying fungus causes all disease?" Well, it has an aspect in disease, and one has to ask why it is there. So if it is in the human body, is it there because gut protection is broken down? Is it there because the person is eating a lot of sugar? Is it there because they're having a lot of antibiotics? Is it there because they're breathing in a mouldy pillow? Is it there because they're a gardener constantly subjected to mould in the compost? You see, it's not as simple as that fungus causes disease. It certainly can be an element, and the detective hat has to be put on and asked, why are these things so? There are a few books, and I'd like to refer to those books now. This book is called Breast Cancer, Hope at Last, and it's written by the former head of the World Health Organization Department of Mycology, which is, of course, the Department of Fungus. And after 25 years of research, he put all his findings in a book. This book's called Breast Cancer, Hope at Last. And he has 2 other books. One's on prostate and one's called The Garden of Eden Diet. But what I'd like to just give you an illustration of now, I'd like to show you the amount of medical research he quotes. On this page here, there are 16 quoted research papers. In some of his books, he's quoting 30,000 research papers. Wow! So that much of the book is just the quoted research papers. There is another book, and this one's by an Italian oncologist. He's called Dr. Tullio Simoncini. And his book is called Cancer is a Fungus. There's another book, and it's by a Doug Kaufman. He's a medical journalist, and he writes with Dr. Holland. This is an American man, and his book is called The Germ That Causes Cancer. This book's out of print at the moment. You may get it on Amazon, which is where I got it. The book was a soft cover and it fell apart in my hands, but notice the front page of his book, the human DNA and the fungal DNA coming together to cause the cancer DNA. So the link between cancer and fungus is being acknowledged by many today. If you put that into the web, you'll have a whole heap to look at. But this book is very well known, and as you can see by my book, it's a very well-read book. Many guests look at this. It's called The China Study by Dr. Colin Campbell, and he was asked to go to the Philippines because children were dying of liver cancer between 8 and 10 years of age. Liver cancer, now this is something that only usually gets in adults, and at that, alcoholics. And he found the common denominator was peanut butter. Every jar of peanut butter that he tested had aflatoxin. Now the mold that gives off aflatoxin is Aspergillus. And Aspergillus can grow on grains. Peanuts are a common one. And the mold waste that is given off by Aspergillus is aflatoxin. Most people have heard of aflatoxin. Aflatoxin is the most carcinogenic substance that has ever been tested. And these children that were dying of liver cancer, he found that the aflatoxin was in every jar of peanut butter. He presumed that the poorer children would be dying and the wealthy children would not be dying. And he found the opposite was true. And this shocked him because he considered surely the wealthy children would be eating a better diet. But the wealthy children were eating what Time magazine called in one article they did, the meat sweet diet. In other words, high meat, high dairy, high sugar, high refined grains. Whereas the poorer children, they were eating a high vegetable diet, a little bit of soy, a little bit of fish, an unrefined diet. Colin Campbell scratched his head because in med school he was told the importance of dairy, the importance of meat, dairy for calcium, meat for proteins and ions. And yet what he was looking at is the poorer children were living and the wealthy children were dying, and the only difference was that diet. They were still having the peanut butter. So he looked a little bit further, and in one medical journal he saw an article on aflatoxin, on liver cancer, which immediately attracted him. And it was by an Indian doctor. And he had done research on rats. 20 rats, all injected with aflatoxin. Every researcher knows you inject aflatoxin, you create liver cancer. 10 rats, he gave a 20% animal protein diet. The other 10 rats, 5% animal protein diet. That's the only difference. He said 2 years rats live, and they test rats because rats have a very similar gastrointestinal tract to humans. And he found that at the end of their life, after 2 years, every rat on the 20% animal protein diet were either dead or dying of liver cancer. And he found every rat on the 5% animal protein diet was free of cancer. Never in research do you get 100% versus naught. He was shocked at this. He closed the study because he said this was against everything he'd been taught. Years later, he did his own research, and the book's called The China Study, because in China, I think it was in about the 60s, there's an emperor who got cancer, and he wanted to do research where he did maps on the parts of the country that had high cancer and low cancer rates. And the high cancer were always around the cities where they were eating the refined food, and the low cancer rates were always out in the country. That's why it's called the China Study. Years later, Colin Campbell did his own research, and he came up with the same results of this Indian doctor. But he did another aspect. He did 20% vegetable protein, but the rats did not get cancer. There was something in the animal protein that was triggering it. There are a few things actually. It creates an acid environment in the body, and cancer loves an acid environment. And one of those doctors, he was injecting sodium bicarbonate straight into the cancers. Cancer loves acid, and this sodium bicarbonate would cause a wave of alkalinity that the cancer could not survive in. Has he received a Nobel Prize? No, his qualifications have been taken away from him, I'm afraid, at this point. But my reason for showing you those books was to show you that this is acknowledged really worldwide by some very eminent doctors, professors and scientists who are looking at this and starting to get results. You see, chemotherapy and radiotherapy, I wonder if in about 20 years they're going to look at that we're in the dark ages in treatment of cancer, because they certainly kill cancer, but they of course can kill healthy cells too. I find people that do survive chemo and radiotherapy are the people that change their lifestyle. And we here at our health retreat, we have seen some quite remarkable turnarounds by basically working with the human body. So the points that we use when looking at getting any yeast or fungus out of the body, and by the way, a person can have a yeast presence and not have cancer. Well, how would they know? The tongue. The tongue should be perfectly pink from the tip to the back. Now, if the white can be scraped off the tongue, that is waste. But if it cannot be scraped off the tongue, they are usually fungus buds. The human body is designed to heal itself. And it'll heal itself if you give it the right conditions. So what are the right conditions for eliminating a yeast presence out of the body? Where it be something as simple as psoriasis or eczema, which are commonly caused by a fungus, or whether it be athlete's foot, tinea, jock itch, anal itch, vaginal itch, or whether it be even more serious with cancer. Number one, starve. How do we starve the fungus? Well, it's very important to acknowledge its favourite food. Its favourite food is sugar. And just about everything that you buy in the supermarket has sugar. It also, of course, multiplies when it is exposed to yeast. So this is your Marmites, your Vegemites, your Promites, your yeast spreads, all your sugars, yeast spreads, and also grains. We totally drastically reduce grains because they can commonly be infected with aflatoxin. In Australia today, all grain is tested for aflatoxin. The grain we get is not totally free because otherwise then none would get through, but a small amount. And of course, if the gut's working well, a small amount can be handled. Also, the person must check their home that they're not constantly being reinfected by a mold presence in the home. Number 2, kill. The good news is that there are herbs that will kill fungus, kill mold, and will not kill you. One is garlic, it's well known. Another is olive leaf extract. Olive leaf extract contains a plant chemical called oleucin, and it is strong antifungal. One lady said, "Oh, I take a little bit of that every day." I said, "I would not advise you do that. That's like taking a little bit of antibiotic every day to prevent a cold." No, keep it for when you need it. Also, grapefruit seed extract. Grapefruit seed extract is a very strong antifungal, and if you do use it, my suggestion is only a few drops 3 times a day. You can buy it in a little container called Traveller's Friend. It's called Traveller's Friend because many people travel with it. They just put 1 drop, say, in a bottle of water, and it will kill off any bacteria or fungus that may be in there. Another one is Portiaco. It's a South American herb that is quite strong antifungal. When people are looking at eliminating yeast from the body, I say it's a good idea to work with a professional, a naturopath. But what I advise is maybe 2 weeks on this, 2 weeks on this, 2 weeks on this, 2 weeks on this. Body gets used to things, so it's good to alternate. Number 3, balance. Very important to bring back the balance in the gastrointestinal tract, and so that is taking a probiotic. When the antibiotic comes in, or the different drugs that kill off this, it's important to replace that gut flora. When you flood the gastrointestinal tract with the good guys, they bring the candida yeast back under control. So the balance is important. Number 4 is alkalize. Yeast and fungus love an acid environment, so it's very important to alkalize. I'm going to be doing a whole lecture on acid alkaline in this series, but very simply, the most alkalizing food you can take is your vegetables, and of the vegetable kingdom, it is the dark green leafies. That's why spirulina, wheatgrass, green barley, green smoothies, they're all very popular because they are very alkalizing in the body. So alkalize is important. And number 5 is ormis. This is orbitally rearranged monoatomic elements. It's a mineral supplement that produces minerals in a superconductive form. So it's very easily utilised by the body. And research in America today is showing that it is able to heal DNA damage. You can see by my last lecture, if we're not healing the DNA, it's quite possible that the rogue cells can continue to be made. We've seen many people conquer yeast presence in their body, even to the point of conquering cancer, by implementing this simple 5-step program. In conjunction with implementing the 8 laws of health, which is what we're going to be discussing this. Very important to have fresh air, a bit of sunshine every day. Don't take anything into the body that will harm it. Getting the proper rest. I will be defining the proper exercise. Proper diet, will be defining that. Use of water. Trust in divine power takes in all the mental and the emotional aspects of disease, which it is well acknowledged that that can certainly play a part. So we have seen some incredible turnarounds by implementing these very simple procedures. But probably the most powerful way to stimulate a healing response in the body initially is to stop eating. To stop eating Yes, we need fuel. Yes, we need nourishment, which of course is what food gives us. But we also need to take time where we go on a short fast. And that's what we do at Misty Mountain Health Retreat. People come to our health retreat to have 2 days on juices. So when they go on juices for 2 days, we serve them mostly vegetable with a little bit of fruit juices about every 2 hours. So every 2 hours they have a fruit and vegetable juice, mostly vegetable. What's happening? Well, digestion is like an explosion on the human body. And an enormous amount of energy and blood is required to digest a meal. So when a person's not digesting, all that blood and energy starts to go round the rest of the body looking for something to do. It's been used for centuries in Europe as part of detox or cleanse or stimulating a powerful healing response in the body. It can be likened to what happens when you or I are on holiday at home. I don't know about you, but I go to the parts of my house that are bugging me. I get given a lot of information, papers come in, and they often tend to pile up. Every day we sweep the floor, we wash the dishes, we wash the clothes, we make the beds. So we do all our basic maintenance, but I'm talking about that extra stuff. Well, this is what happens when you stop eating. The body starts to go to other parts. And it'll be different in every single body. The body knows what to do, and this is part of the condition. As the body starts to bring about restoration, regeneration, it's got to clean house first. And so it starts to eliminate built-up waste. And as it does, it gets thrown off via 4 main organs of elimination. The largest organ of elimination is the skin. Very large surface area, and it's got lots of little holes called pores in it. Dr. Kellogg, very famous doctor from over 100 years ago, who wrote many, many books on health, he called the pores in the skin millions of little sewers. And of course, what are sewers? They're throwing off waste. So your skin has certain needs for it to be an effective organ of elimination. It needs to breathe. So allow your skin to breathe by being very mindful of the clothes that you put next to your skin. There are many natural fibres we would be aware of: cotton, silk, linen, wool, flax, hemp, bamboo. There's many natural fabrics today, but you might not be aware of 3 natural fabrics that are made from wood pulp. One is rayon, one is tencel, T-E-N-C-I-L, and the other is viscose. Viscose is very popular in many fabrics today. There's actually a 4th, and it's modal, M-O-D-A-L. It's the cellulose spun from the birch tree. So be very mindful that the clothes that are touching, especially your torso, be made out of natural fibre. The 3 to be cautious of are nylon, polyester and acrylic. Nylon, polyester and acrylic are 3 fabrics basically made out of plastic. And when they're on your skin and you get hot and those fabrics heat up, your skin can start to absorb the poisons from those fabrics. Also important to wash your body every single day, at least once. On very hot days, we are very hot as I speak. I know yesterday we're having a heat wave. I think I had 4 showers yesterday. And actually one of them was in the creek. So very important that the more perspiration that's coming off you, the more you wash. Very important to wash that waste away as it comes out of your skin. Also make sure that the clothes that are touching your torso are washed every day, especially when you're on a detox. So allow your skin to breathe. Water in and water out. Water in. Our body loses approximately about 2.5 litres of water every day. I think on days like today, the news said last night that In some places, I think out at Burka, it's 45 degrees, you know, it's very, very hot. So a lot more perspiring. We need to take a lot more water in. Even on days like that, up to 3 litres of water a day. Important to take it in little by little by little. So water out too. Wash that skin. I suggest when you're on a detox program even to have at least 2 showers a day. The skin also needs you to exercise. When you exercise, you increase the circulation of the blood to the skin, and when the circulation of the blood to the skin is increased, more waste is thrown off via the skin. But before I move on from water, at Misty Mountain we have steam baths, and these steam saunas down by the creek are happening every afternoon, and that really increases the body's ability to throw off waste. Under those conditions, up to 70% of body's waste can be eliminated via the skin. That's quite a phenomenal statement. What are the perfect conditions, really, that steam bath, where our guests get into the steam bath, they get very, very hot, then they dive in the cool creek, then back into the steam bath. They usually do it 3 times every evening. Exercise. What sort of exercise will increase the circulation of the blood to the skin? Anything that gets that heart moving and breathing increase. We should get to that every single day. And in a later lecture, I will define exercise in more detail. The second organ of elimination are the lungs. The lungs take in oxygen and breathe out carbon dioxide. Carbon dioxide is the gaseous waste created by the combustion of oxygen at the cellular level. So what your lungs need is fresh air, because the more oxygen that is taken into the lungs, the more carbon dioxide can be breathed out of the lungs. It's like a gaseous exchange in those little alveoli in the lungs. Your lungs also need you to exercise, because when you exercise, your breathing changes. Have you noticed? You start breathing a lot deeper, and the deeper you breathe, the more oxygen that you're coming in, that you're getting into your lungs. Your lungs also need water. On a cold winter morning, we can see each other's breath, can't we? Because of the moisture, the warm moisture that's coming out every exhalation. When we're dehydrated, the little bronchioles tend to shrink up to try and conserve water. So very important that you drink adequate water so that the lungs can expel their waste. Kidneys. The kidneys filter the blood. And they do it in quite a fascinating way. Let me illustrate. Our kidneys are made up of lots of little filtering units called nephrons, and our kidney is as big as our fist. So my 6'6" brother-in-law has a bigger fist than mine, and my little granddaughter Saffron Pearl, who is 3, she has a smaller fist than me. How important to teach children about the house they live in, which is this body. Surely the most neglected form of education. So our kidney is as big as our fist. It actually sits a little below our ribs, and each kidney has 1 million filtering units. Let me draw one of the filtering units. That's the filtering unit, and these are the tubules that the filtrate travels along before it gets down to the bladder and then of course is urinated out. So the blood goes in, it weaves around the filtering units, and then it weaves around the tubules. In a 24-hour period, 1,800 litres of blood is filtered. We don't have that much blood. No, we don't. But every 2 minutes, 1.2 litres goes through the little filtering unit. And out of that filtering unit, 180 litres of filtrate is filtered out. But we don't urinate out 180 litres. We only urinate out approximately 1.5 litres in a 24-hour period. So what happens to the other 160 litres? They're reabsorbed here. So there's a reabsorption area, and later in the week I'll show you that in that reabsorption area our blood pressure is balanced or monitored, salt and water balances in the body is monitored, and also pH is monitored. So you're understanding this gives you an idea of what the kidneys need. The kidneys need water. Because when you drink adequate water, it keeps your blood nice and thin, and it's a lot easier for that little filtering unit to filter your blood when the blood's nice and thin. So we need to be drinking at least 2 to 2.5 litres of water every day. The second one is warm. The kidneys need to be warm. Let me show you. Here is the kidney. And these little filtering units are all on the edge. And these tubules here basically weave down like this. And then into the ureter, which is into the bladder, and there's the ureter from the other kidney, and then urinated out. Considering this, you can imagine if this back area of the human body gets cold, then not a lot of blood will go into that area. You see, we're warm-blooded creatures, and where there's no blood, there's no warmth. And if someone has cold hands and you look at them, their hands will be quite white. But if they clap their hands and rub their hands together, the hands become pink, and now they're warm. Do you know why they're warm? Because they've got blood in them. So it is the blood that causes the warmth. So let's say, and it has been a common fashion over many years, to have the midriff area bare. And that's all right on a day like today. And it's all right in the middle of summer in Cairns. But when I lived in Melbourne a few years ago, in the winter you would see young girls with bare midriffs. What happens is the blood's not getting in there because it's so cold. And so what's happening is the blood's not getting filtered. And so waste starts to build up in the blood, and who's going to clean up the waste? Your own microorganisms evolve into the cleanup team. And then the girl goes to the doctor because she's discovered she's got a urinary tract infection. Hopefully that doctor says to her, how much water are you drinking? You've got to keep those kidney warms. Are you exercising? Have you stopped the coffee? Have you stopped the Coca-Cola? But I've got a friend, she's a doctor, and if she says that, you know what the girl will do? She'll get up, leave her surgery and find someone who'll just give her a course of antibiotics. No, she's got to keep those antibiotics when she really needs them. Urinary tract infections are quite easily fixed. You've got to look at what causes them, start to drink more water. But this is continuing. And so the brain says, the kidneys are having a problem. They're not able to filter the blood because they're so cold. Let's insulate the kidney. And what does the body insulate the kidneys with? Now remember, we don't have fur and we don't have feathers. We have fat. And so the fat cells are built up there to insulate the kidney. This is the belt. I think it's called muffin top. Do you find that today? Many young girls, they've got thin arms, thin legs, but they've got this weight around the torso area. And a lot of it has to do with the poor old kidneys are constantly cold. We had a girl work with us for a while who'd lived in Nepal for 2 years. She said, do you know the Nepalese women bind fur strips around their kidney area because they know the importance of keeping the kidneys warm. There's an old proverb, it's Proverbs 14 verse 6, it says, knowledge is easy to him that understands. And that's why I tell you this, because when you understand where the kidney is, how it works, you automatically have the knowledge on how to treat it and what to give it. So that will give you an understanding of why it is so important to keep the kidneys warm. Exercise. Often called the forgotten remedy, isn't it? Exercise is very important for the kidneys because when you exercise, you increase the circulation of the blood all through the body and absolutely to these little filtering units. So when you exercise, it enables the kidneys to filter the little units much more effectively. Exercise does something else too. See, every time you walk, just picture your kidneys. Every step that you take, your kidneys are being strengthened and toned to perform their work. The fourth organ of elimination is the colon. Only microscopic waste can come out via your skin, via your lungs, and via your kidneys. The largest pieces of waste is eliminated via the colon. And you may have noticed that the colon has a mind of its own. I have a book at home called The Second Brain. It's all on the colon. Have you noticed that when you tell it to stop, it won't? And when you tell it to go, it won't. It has a mind of its own. So the colon needs stimulation. It does not need irritation. It needs stimulation. So what stimulates the colon? Let's make a stimulation list. Well, the first point is laughter. No wonder the proverb says, "A merry heart doeth good like a medicine, but a broken spirit dries up the bones." Laughter relaxes the colon. Did you know that children laugh 125 times a day? So should we. Laughter is very good medicine, and it's very good for the colon. What else stimulates the colon is water. One of the main functions of the colon is to take water out so stools are formed so that the contents can be passed with ease. So when someone is dehydrated, usually more water gets taken out of the colon than should be taken out of the colon. Then you've got cement, rabbit pellets. So very important that you be drinking adequate water so that that colon functions properly. What also stimulates the colon is exercise. When you exercise, you increase blood supply to the colon, and the blood supply to the colon is massive. But something else is also happening when you exercise. Your movement of your torso. Every step that you take, your colon is moving. So exercise is vital for the proper functioning of the colon. Fibre. Fibre gently sweeps the colon. Fibre does two things. It gently sweeps the colon and it stimulates movement through the colon. It is important that the peristalsis in the colon be moving ever forward, ever forward. So fibre does two vital things. It sweeps the colon, and our colon basically is like this. It's got lots of little grooves in there. There's the appendix, there's the small intestine, and here's the colon here. And that's where everything comes out. And because of all these little corners and grooves, it's vital that fibre be a main part of the food so that that gets swept every day. And again, the fibre stimulates the movement through the colon. That's the appendix. By the way, did you know that it's a very important part of the body? What's the appendix for? Some people think that it's not necessary, and sadly, in times past, surgeons would chop it out. One lady said, "I had my ovary removed, and while the surgeon was there, he took the appendix." That makes no sense at all. Let's just cut the foot off in case it gets sick. No, we need these body types, these body parts. The appendix has two main functions. It's called the colon's oil can because it releases a lubricant to allow the contents to get through the colon effectively, and it also releases antibacterial fluid. For some people who are on a high animal, high refined, high sugar diet, what's coming out of that small intestine is pretty toxic. And so the appendix releases antibacterial fluid to try and calm it down a bit. So appendix very important. Let's go back to the colon and the importance of fibre. At Misty Mountain Health Retreat, for the first 2 days on juices, we don't serve fibre. Obviously, they're on juices. So we offer herbs. And these herbs that we offer gently stimulate the peristalsis in the colon. So it's important that that move every day. Dr. Kellogg said 3 intakes of food a day should equal 3 evacuations of food a day. Now, or evacuations a day. Most people are surprised to hear that, because most Aussies think if they go once a day, they're going well. Well, that would only be applicable if they ate 1 meal a day, and I don't know anyone that does that. Actually, I have met people who eat 1 meal a day. It starts in the morning and it doesn't stop till they go to bed. No, that's not counted. We should be having, and I'll show you this in a later lecture, we should be having a meal, then we should be having a nice 5-hour break ideally, and then we should be having another meal. That's what the stomach and the colon loves. We are creatures of habit, and the colon loves you to be in a habit. It likes you to eat at the same time every day, drink at the same time every day, go to bed at the same time every day, get up at the same time every day. Now obviously there are times when we can't always do that, and the colon can cope with that. But how many people when they travel say their colon stops because what's happened? They've been thrown out of their usual habit times. The colon loves it when you have breakfast at 7 o'clock or 7:30 or 8 every day. What it doesn't like is 5 o'clock one day, 10 o'clock another, 8 o'clock another, 1 o'clock another. It doesn't like that. It can cope with the odd day. In a couple of weeks I'm travelling to America, so everything's going to be thrown out. It can cope with that. It doesn't mean you have to have breakfast at 7 o'clock every day, and if it's 7 you're in trouble, or it's 7. No. The colon can cope with about a half an hour either side. But we are creatures of habit. Your cell's a creature of habit. Your colon is a creature of habit. And the good thing about giving your body times where you do the same things at the same time every day is you can predict. You can predict when the colon is going to decide to evacuate, and that's very handy. Because it's not handy when we're on a plane and we're about to land and we need to go. And at that time, we are very thankful for our anal sphincter because it will hold. The problem is most people use that anal sphincter because they're watching a television show and it's getting excited and they don't want to go. Or they're on the phone to a girlfriend and they're busy in the middle of an exciting story, or she's telling exciting and they don't want to go. Can you see what I mean? Many people use this, what we're very glad of, the anal sphincter holding, when the rest of our body wants to go. We're very glad of that. But many people use it too often. And then the colon gets into a habit. And I think most people know that the person feels to go, but they don't go because they're in the middle of an interesting game or show. And then when it all finishes, they go and they can't go. Because when you feel to go, this area of the colon fills up, and that's the pressure on the anal sphincter. If you don't go, then everything actually falls back into the previous part of the colon. And the water continues to come out, because remember, that's one of the main functions of the colon, is to take water out so stools are formed. And what's happening to this bit that's staying in there longer than it should be staying in there? It's getting drier and harder, and then it's more difficult to pass. So the person says, I'm going to have to give it a bit of help and strain, and then terrible things pop out called hemorrhoids. I remember when I used to work in the operating theatre and I assisted for some hemorrhoidectomies. Oh, nasty. They put a little bit of suture line around the neck and just cut it off. I always used to think, oh dear, that's going to feel terrible when they wake up. Well, nothing compared to how they're going to feel when they pass their first bowel motion. And usually painkillers are given. And painkillers are well known to constipate, so you get this vicious cycle. So remember, prevention is worth an ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure. We should change that, because we're into kilos now. But this is prevention. Very important to prevent any problems in the gastrointestinal tract, especially at the bottom end. It should be running very nicely and very smoothly, and then that makes for a very happy human being. Remember, important part of the colon, if the sewage system isn't working well, nothing works well. Just remember this, that when you feel to go, promptly answer nature's immediate call. Got that? We need to promptly answer nature's immediate call, because your body panics if you don't. Very important to do that. It's an important part of making sure the colon works well and getting into the habit of listening. Have you ever been to a doctor who won't listen to you? It's very frustrating, isn't it? Don't be that doctor. When your body speaks, you need to listen. One lady said to me, I'm a businesswoman, people ring me and they pay $300 an hour to talk to me. She said, if I need to go, I say, excuse me, a crisis has arisen, I'll ring you back. Really, that's how we ought to see it. And remember, it's not the odd day that the plane's landing and you can't go. It's not the odd day you do it, and it's the odd day you don't. It's actually what you do every day that develops the habit patterns of your cells. If you have a look at most babies and children, they evacuate after every meal. Then they go to school and they don't want to, they're too embarrassed to leave the classroom, or they're not allowed to leave the classroom. And that's really when the habit patterns begin. But the good news is we're constantly being remade, and you can change those habit patterns. On my last lecture, I'm going to show you how you can rewire your brain. And you rewire your brain, you can also rewire your colon. As I said to you, only microscopic waste can come out of the skin, lungs and kidneys. It's the largest pieces of waste that is eliminated via the colon. In my next lecture, I'm going to be discussing your project manager, which is your liver, and your liver is the organ that is orchestrating where the waste comes out. But before we end this presentation, there's one more tiny little member. It's called the tongue. And it is also an organ of elimination. And on a detox program, it's not unusual for people to wake up with tongues that feel terrible. That's because the waste is coming out. And there's a very simple thing that you can do to help that waste come out and be eliminated. It's called oil pulling. Oil pulling has been known for centuries all through Europe. I myself have only known about it for about 10 years. What is oil pulling? It's putting a spoonful, if you're not used to it, start with a teaspoon, putting a small spoonful of oil, I prefer coconut oil, in the mouth, and then swishing. So swish, swish, swish all around the mouth, and you may do it for 10 minutes. You might swish for 30 seconds and rest for 30 seconds, something like that. Now, at the moment, our coconut oil is clear because it is so hot. In the winter, it's solid, then it's quite white. But when it is liquid, it is clear. And I say to our guests, when you spit the coconut oil out on the grass, please not down the sink because it could go solid and clog up our drains. Spit it out on the grass. As you spit it out, you will see it is no longer clear. It is white, indicating the change that has taken place as the waste is pulled out of your tongue, as the waste is pulled out of the glands under your tongue, as the waste is pulled out of the blood vessels under your tongue, and this is everything that oil pulling does. So it's called oil pulling because you're using oil, and as you swish, it pulls out waste from your tongue and from under your tongue. I've also known people to conquer gingivitis, that's sore gums, bleeding gums, by oil pulling every day. I suggest that our guests on the detox program oil pull maybe about 3 times a day, especially on the juicing days. You get better at it. One lady said she started to oil pull and after a minute she couldn't bear it anymore. I said, that's all right, spit it out. Next time you do it, if you go 1.5 minutes, you'll be doing well. I'm so used to it now. I oil pull every morning. I need to do this little detox because I travel such a lot and I'm in planes such a lot. And I find it a very effective way at doing a very simple and a very easy detox. Some people prefer olive oil, some people prefer sesame oil. Myself, I prefer coconut oil. One of the reasons I like coconut oil is because underneath the tongue there are sublingual glands which release lingual lipase. And when that lingual lipase connects with the coconut oil, it causes a release of antibacterial properties. So that's another reason why your coconut oil is so good at the oil pulling. So be mindful of your organs of elimination, give them the right conditions so that they can effectively detoxify you, for we are all subject to environmental poisons. And in my next lecture, we're going to be looking at the project manager, which is your liver.